Hey there, I'm Jules.
I'm Lisa.
I'm Matt.
And we are the hosts of Eye for an Eye podcast.
Each week we share a true crime case that truly fascinates us and discuss whether or not eye for an eye was met.
Does the punishment fit the crime? Was it too harsh? Too lenient? Tune in every Monday to hear our thoughts and make sure to follow us on social media to join the discussion.
You can find Eye for an Eye on all listening platforms by searching Eye for an Eye podcast.
We hope to see you there.
On this second episode in our series, we'll get to the torment that is the trip, the pain and suffering the children in the cult went through, the astronomical amount of money that they were able to bring in tax-free, Chuck's ever-growing paranoia, and the attempted murder that brought the whole thing down on episode 2 of The Cult of Synanon. I'm Kevin Young.
And I'm utterly confused.
And this is torture. Are you alright?
It's just, like you said already, audio and having zero research into the subject matter.
Yeah, so we're having a little bit of trouble with our audio today. That tends to happen when you're thousands of miles away from one another. 6 hours away. 6 hours by time zone, not six. If we were only 6 hours away from one another, it'd be completely different. But we're having some audio issues. So if there's a little bit of a lag, we'll try to get everything fixed. But
Just thank God we're not live streaming.
oh, that'd be fucking horrible. It'd be the worst. It'd be the worst fucking thing. I don't think we're ever gonna live stream, unless we both amp up everything that we have, hardware and software wise. To where it's
I'd have to go to somebody else's house to do it. I know exactly who I'd go to as well, but I'd have to go to somebody else's house. Yeah, but it'd be a tough thing for me to do here because for people that live across the other side of the pond, with me living right in the very centre of Ireland here, pretty much, it's the internet ain't the best, to say the least.
Yeah.
We have a potato downstairs that is hooked into the wall. That is sending out a signal that's allowing me to communicate with people transatlantically. So we're one step away from Morse coding it at this stage, and it beep 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 beeps.
Smoke signals. Yeah, podcast with smoke signals.
So we're getting running water next week though, so that's okay.
So you just gotta wait for the toilets to be installed.
Yeah.
Just don't. You can have a nice outhouse. Just don't invest in one of those 2-story ones. It's a mess.
You can't beat a good outhouse. So that's actually a funny story for you, though, then before we get into this whole thing. Is speaking of outhouses, I remember my father brought me around the country when I was younger. We went to a school that he used to attend when he was... Be kind of like, I don't know what way your school structure is, but when you're in a junior school here, it's kind of between the ages of 5 and 12, let's say. And he showed us the toilets they had, which was literally a bench with a hole in it into nothing. And it's that wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't.
My God,
that's like what you find in the fucking castles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
God
Couldn't believe it.
There's no possible way your dad's that old.
Well, look, take everything with a pinch of salt and all that, but I remember seeing it and just thinking, oh my God. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe they still had the things in the building itself. They weren't used, but I think they kept them there because it was how old the place was or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah. Yep. We have real toilets now, though.
That's good.
So
Finally.
Just in case anybody wants to come over and visit. And they can take far more punishment than the American toilets can take. I can tell you that now.
Oh, you're not lying. Holy shit. Everything's low flow over here and takes like 5 flushes. Yeah. No, toilets here are... No pun intended. The toilets here are shit.
Look, you got good Wi-Fi. We got good toilets.
I mean... I don't know if that's an even give and take. I would rather have the good Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Me too.
Honestly. But I would give up the good Wi-Fi for better sewers. I'm not so worried about the toilets as I am the sewer system.
Yeah.
It's not like the fucking Ninja Turtles. They're not big enough for you to walk around in. All right? It's just they're not.
That's a Dungeons and Dragons fucking sewer system. All the sewer systems, whenever anybody plays D&D, they're bigger than the actual cities themselves. It's like, seriously, do people really think they build tunnels the size of a building going underground below buildings that are fucking hovels and shitholes?
It's like look at the Batman movies where they go down the fucking sewer system and it's like it's a city down there. Why would you put all your money into this? What the fuck is wrong with you? Shit runs through here. That's it. That's all that goes through here is shit and piss. Why would you do that?
Your thing, just as a quick heads up, is going robotic slow motion every now and again. Get the first few words.
It's amazing how how Zoom will turn you into Flipper.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it. We got a lot of shit to cover, so let's get into it. So this isn't a 3-hour
let's do this.
episode. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so when we last left off with old Chuck, with old Chucky D, not the rapper, he had introduced
or the doll.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't think about that. He's closer to the doll than he is the rapper. So when we last left off with old Chuck, he had introduced the advanced version of the game known as the Trip. So let's get into exactly what it was and what it entailed. It was first offered to the selected few as an honor, but the entire population was eventually targeted. Chuck called it an insight-producing experience. He said, quote, "At the end of this rainbow, there will be a pot of gold. Through dissipation or long hours of activity without very much sleep, we hope to bring about in you a conscious state of inebriation. We want to get you loaded without acid. You will learn more about yourself, your fellow man, the world, the nature of reality in one weekend than you would in 4 years. Let your ego go. Let things happen to you. It's a feeling of closeness to each other we are after, the death of the ego, a reference point for the rest of your life. You may change your value systems, notions about life, and viewpoints about people. It will produce a new breed of human beings with greatly expanded potential. If you do your best, you can't fail." That's a lot of panache you're putting on this. A lot of selling.
Hippy bullshit.
Yeah. So let's get into the intensity of the trip.
So if you don't mind me saying real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first thing that comes to mind when its description is Homer Simpson in the desert with the fox. The whole outer body. That's literally what I was picturing the whole time when given his description of what was happening, the whole tripping balls without any drugs thing. I can imagine Leonard Nimoy sitting there talking to a cartoon fox.
The tongue covered in wax because he ate too many peppers. Yeah.
It's like one of the best scenes on TV.
It is. Okay, let's get into the intensity of the trip. So about 7 p.m. on a Friday, the chosen trippers, around 50 in all, of all ages, were to meet at the Del Mar lobby by people dressed in long white robes and yellow silk scarves. A shepherd led them through a candle-lit and incense-burning corridor to a locker room filled with rows of army cots with name cards on them. Each person stripped down, put on white robes. Watches were taken as time was no longer important. Women removed all makeup and jewelry, a symbolic stripping of their past selves. The guides, all experienced game players, turned each group from enthusiasm into a depression and defeat, wallowing in its collective shame. Sitting in comfortable green armchairs, they made the dope fiends tell their tales of drugs, rape, crime, and beatings. The squares were pushed to confess their prior loneliness and despair. Remember, the squares were the ones who didn't have a drug problem, but did this shit anyway. The game turned on one another. Disoriented by lack of sleep, each was moved to the point of intense disillusionment. Aides who did their homework provided ammunition to the conductors on each tripper. Everyone was to, quote, cop out or confess past sins. The result was implantation of a common bond and sense of ideals, all identified with Synanon. Each tripper was to write a paper on some feeling or admission. Yes, they were given fucking homework to do while they were there.
Homework, yes. Realistically, so what they did, like to break it down to like a layman's quick version of it, is they basically brought them into a room that had practically nothing in it, took everything away from them, beat them down emotionally and mentally until they basically thought that this only thing that can really help me and save me is this church, and then you have to write a paper about it.
Yeah, and we're only like a day or so into it. We still got some time to go. They're not done yet. Yeah, but yes, you got it exactly right. And the whole white robe thing, it's very, I mean, over the top culted. I know he's going for like this whole religious garb thing, but it's very over the top culty wise.
Yeah, it's like straight from the cult handbook. 101.
Exactly.
Get white robes. Sorted. Tick.
Green armchairs. Mark it off. After that, a big shot would advise the trippers that they were not really chosen as an honor, but each was really selected because each was a resistor, thinking he or she knew better the direction Synanon should go. Part of the, quote, dummies that hold Synanon back. Chuck said, quote, maybe one day we'll just put dingbacks like you up against the wall and wash them off and bring them back into the human race. So just beating them down as much as possible.
So he basically made it out to them as though they were the worst of the group?
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that's what I mean, yeah, so it's to further emotionally destroy them, like.
Yeah. You weren't picked for this trip because you're these great people and it's this great honor. You were picked for this because you're scum and we have to beat you back in line. But they waited until they were already halfway through before they tell them that.
Asshole.
Well, yeah. So there was the witching hour, which featured a Ouija board to be operated by witches, 2 women in black and white robes, again. The board would spell out messages on self-reliance, but self-reliance was interpreted as the ability to make choices, and the best way to end loneliness and suffering was through trusting in Synanon.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
The board said they would adopt the Synanon family, or the 5th circle in Dante's hell, where tormented souls were terrorized and torn, awaited them. So, trust us or burn in hell. So they really are turning into a religion.
Just hashtag red flags. Like, yeah. Your man, he really knows what he's doing, though. You know, it's like he wrote the book on it. You know, it's ridiculous.
He really does, and it's scary that a guy who's this inept in pretty much everything he's ever done in his life is so good at this one thing, and it's this fucking thing that he's good at. So when the first tripper, physically and emotionally exhausted, broke and wept, it snowballed to the others. Crying trippers embraced, feeling euphoria and transcending love. The conductor made it clear that this was the resistors' last chance, their last hope. The game took on each Unbroken's dirty, rotten story with great brutality. Aids returned with smut obtained from the Unbroken spouses to use. The Broken joined the attack. Some trippers began to hallucinate, Chuck having achieved his LSD replicated altered state of consciousness. Fighting to stay awake, defenses wiped away. The Unbroken broke and asked for forgiveness. Some rolled up on the floor in the fetal position. Some laughed. Others howled and sobbed. Some cried for their mothers. When they asked for friends, they were hugged en masse. All thought the experience was beautiful. Chuck would elsewhere declare that if you kept people up long enough, you can make them believe anything.
This is like reminding me of some of the parts of the White Room torture.
Kind
stuff.
of. Yeah.
It's that full-on psychological side of things. You know, it's very, very fucked up. So the whole idea then, again, to break it down the layman side of things, is get people into a room, make them feel like complete and utter shit as much as possible, give them absolutely zero sleep, and continue to make them feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
That they feel in any form of emotion, make them feel even worse.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that up until this point, everything he's done to them has been completely psychological. He hasn't done really any physical torture to anybody yet. It's been completely psychological.
Yeah.
The physical torture is going to come, but so far,
I like the word "yet"
just
in there.
focusing on that.
Yeah.
That aspect. Yet.
Mm.
So at 8 a.m. on Monday, now they go in at 7 p.m. on Friday. They don't come out till 8 a.m. on Monday, and they haven't had any sleep this entire time. So 8 a.m. Monday, hand in hand, the trippers went down the corridor towards the sound of band music. Now, in a ballroom, the trippers were surrounded by hundreds of cheering, clapping Synanites. The trippers, many of whom had been awake for 65 hours or more, were hugged and cheered. A hoopla began. It's a Synanon dance that they created.
The dance, yeah, the hoopla.
Yeah, they created.
Just imagine what they're
dance.
doing. Yeah.
I couldn't find any. Yeah, I couldn't find any.
It's probably just because
like,
we literally watched it today, but we were after watching that newest movie in the Harry Potter series, the Secrets of Dumbledore.
Okay.
Thing.
Yeah.
And have you seen it?
I have not. My
right.
wife's seen it several times.
All right.
Watched it.
Well, ask her to show you the the crab walking scene thing in it, and anybody else will know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm imagining the dance is. The guy's just kind of like this. It's really funny. It's really funny. That's the first thing that came to my mind. It's probably only because we watched it just tonight. But yeah, that's what I imagine the hoopla is. Hoopla.
So one just had to surrender to Synanon. Teachers, lawyers, doctors, police, politicians, all got hooked, many forming an allegiance previously not matched in their lives to the group and trainers that trained them. The trip was so successful that it soon would be given donations upwards of $500,000. Now, despite the trip's conversion success, the old-timers, or the retired dope fiends, a.k.a. the Walking Dead, as Chuck liked to call them, remained a problem. So you remember how the alcoholics did not want to change and let the dope fiends in.
Yeah.
Well, these retired dope fiends weren't really happy with the way things were going. So they wanted to cure the drug addicts and send them on their way. That's not what Chuck wanted anymore. It was This is what we do. They live here. They stay here. So the Walking Dead that went against Chuck, well, he went ahead and placed them in a 72-hour game that he called the Stew. And he would harangue them for not seeing his vision. So later, the Flies, Chuck called the youngsters in the group, took over the attack. And when they were all exhausted, Chuck would return and offer forgiveness for surrender.
After they've been completely emotionally beaten into the ground and stood upon and ran over with the old truck of emotion until they're nothing but mulch.
And just beaten, and then he comes in like, the god he thinks he is, and puts his hands out. And,
I was going to say, sorry. White robes, check. God complex, check.
Big check. The biggest check mark you can make.
Bunch of really stupid people to follow my ways. Bigger check. And then, that's the thing. Some of these people were incredibly intelligent. Just, I guess, it's very susceptible,
naive or susceptible, or just they have to have something to grab onto, and they didn't have that. I don't understand people that fall for cults, but I used to be a Christian, so I guess I can't say a whole lot because it's pretty much the same thing. Tax exempt status.
You were raised in it though, weren't you? Like, you mean, like you were?
No, we got into it when I was 8. My parents started taking me because we went a little bit when I was a kid, real little. Stopped going for a long time, and then my brother was killed in a drunk driving accident. The pastor whose church we started going to after this was the one who actually came to the house, talked to my parents, calmed them down. We all saw it as, oh, he's in heaven now and all this shit. And we started going. I was big into it for years. I was like this close from learning, going into the ministry myself. The pastor used to call me Rev Kev because I was into it. I wore the Christian.
I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say Rev Kev.
I wore the Christian t-shirts to school. I had a Bible in my backpack. I only listened to Christian, man. I was huge in it. And then, I grew the fuck up. I wish other people would.
Oh, look, my opinion on the Catholic Church at this stage. I'm pretty sure anybody out of the 24 people that listen to us knows it. But I get it though. You know what I mean? I get the concept of like comfort and faith and all that stuff, like, and the ideals and things and all that stuff. I just absolutely despise certain aspects of things, and like, I've known people who are devout Catholics that have said, like, look, I know it's that that this part here is bullshit. It's the ideal side of things, or it's this, or it's the values or the lessons. It's the guideline or whatever you want to call it for life kind of thing. It's the thing to follow. So, just to explain that side of things from my perspective.
And if you can follow that and not go out of your way to fuck up other people's lives in the process, then go right ahead. That's the main issue that I have with it. But, it is what it is. And I'll have you know, sir, that we, as of the recording of this podcast, are getting upwards of 119 downloads a week.
I just wanted you to confirm the actual number right there, so I'm happy to. I was just spitballing a number. It's like, it's 24 people. I'm downloading them all. The thing is, I'd like to be able to thank the first 100 people and have them on record almost if we knew who they were. But
nobody ever fucking emails us.
Yeah, so email. If y'all been listening since day one.
Just email us and say, hey, I'm one of your listeners. We'll shout you out on the fucking episode.
First 100 people that get it in, I'm telling you now, y'all will get something nice.
That's what she said.
Yeah. First 100 people that get in there. You have the email address. You have the socials.
Yep.
Say hello.
Not every. Yep.
We know you're out there.
So,
we know you're listening.
As Chuck's isolationist sentiments grew, he decided that what was good for the goose was good for the gander. When health problems forced him to give up sugar and refined grains, the offending foodstuffs, were quickly removed from Synanon kitchens. When he started running in place to try to lose weight, it quickly became compulsory for everyone to join him in this activity. And when he decided he liked to wear bib overalls, they quickly became... So
he's basically a wife.
The cult uniform. Yeah, kind of. Hey, we're not doing sugar anymore. There's no sugar in the. When I first met my wife, she didn't give her kids any sugar. They get the littlest dollop of maple syrup for like waffles and pancakes. She used was it Truvia, whatever.
I know the stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
I know the stuff. Yeah.
I was like, no, this isn't gonna work for me. I love you, but no, that's not gonna work. And now I believe we have 3 bags of sugar in our kitchen right now.
Yes, yeah. Well, we were kind of starting to do it ourselves, but I started getting into baking again. So
yeah,
that out the window.
Yeah, you have to use real sugar.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Most controversially, when Chuck's doctor advised him to give up smoking, an order was issued banning cigarettes.
Who?
The gravity of this ruling should not be underestimated. That ever since the organization's founding, coffee and cigarettes had been the only chemical buffer between recovering addicts and the abyss of addiction. The smoking ban led to 150 members quitting on the spot.
I'm just going to put it out there right now. If that was me, right, I've given up cigarettes. That's okay. But hearing the word coffee, right, put it this way. This is how bad I am when it comes to coffee, right? My coffee machine broke yesterday. And I'm very, very picky about my goddamn coffee. Like, I hate instant coffee, but I had to do with instant coffee that morning. We drove to my wife's mother's, and the very first thing I did was go in and made myself a real proper cup of coffee in her house. And we came home, and I went and bought myself a new French press so I can go and actually make proper coffee while I'm waiting to see if I get a special deal on a new machine. Because I will not drink any more instant coffee. But my God, if he was to turn around and say cigarettes, okay, you can deal with that. But if coffee goes, I'm sorry, Chuck. Nah, you're
well. Coffee never gets banned. No sugar. I don't know how you
safe for now.
Coffee, but
no sugar. No sugar. No.
No sugar. Okay.
I used to take a lot of sugar in it, and then I slowly weaned myself out of it.
Yeah. So he saw all of these random changes as, quote, squeezing the rotten fruit out of Synanon. So he didn't care if people just left. Synanon was growing rich, and by 1972, there were 1,700 live-in residents who were either paying monthly dues or working for almost nothing. A wealthy woman resident donated $1 million.
What?
Another member gave Synanon control of his mortgage company.
God. We're in the wrong line of business. That's it. We're getting out of the podcast business. We're getting into this whole cult thing. You know, right, so people that are listening to us, you are all... I'm going to use the Chuck method here now, right, to try and get ourselves some followers, right? You're all pieces of shit.
Okay.
You're all terrible human beings. Send us money. Okay. We love you, really. We all love you. Really. Don't do that.
Now go write us an essay.
Yeah. Tell us about how wonderful we are and how much of a piece of shit you know you are. And then send us $1 million. That's a big ass hotel though that they set up in. So wasn't it like it was a
the Del Mar? Yeah. It was big. And then having an entire mortgage company just at your beck and call that they had complete control over. So they would use this to start, evicting people if they needed to, because they started owning apartment buildings and shit. That's something we'll get to here in a second. So added to this was Synanon's hugely profitable business of manufacturing corporate merchandising gimmicks. So like ballpoint pens, wallets, and T-shirts. And they were the second largest such firm in all of the United States.
Synanon Land, isn't it, coming up next, I'm guessing? Like a theme park where it has basically just like Disneyland, but you get verbally abused as you walk in the door.
Yeah. It's a small world after all, you piece of shit. So at Tamales Bay, they had a fleet of ships. At the Badger property, hundreds of motorbikes and trucks.
God. Do you have a navy? Please don't tell me you have a navy.
Unpermitted buildings, trash dump, not to mention an airstrip and a private plane. It was also there the luxurious...
an airstrip, do you say? Fuck. Synanon Air, serving all your airline needs.
It was also there that a luxurious complex known as the Home Place was being constructed, boasting hot tubs and riding stables. This is where Chuck, Betty, and some of Synanon's elders could most often be found. The rank and file lived about a half a mile away in Army-style barracks. So again, the leaders get the posh mansion. Everybody under him, you sleep on cots.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that doesn't scream culty dictatorship at all.
Nope.
Not the slightest.
So this didn't all just go by smoothly. There were battles along the way, but each one seemed to strengthen Synanon and increase Chuck's suspicion of the outside world. In 1972, the San Francisco Examiner published a series of critical articles about the organization's increasingly eccentric character called The Racket of the Century. And, of course, Chuck sued. By this time, his group had a legal staff of 48 drawn from its residents, which included class-topping, Harvard-educated lawyers. Again, smart people.
Obviously not. I'm sorry. I'm going to, from forevermore, take anything to ever hear with Harvard educated with the smallest amount of respect as possible now. Because God.
You just see somebody walking around in that maroon sweater with Harvard across, and you go, sure you're not in a cult?
It's just ridiculous. It's just, yeah.
Hearst newspaper ended up settling out of court for $2.6 million.
Pennies. Pennies to them at this stage. They got more for that old woman down the fucking street. God. Oh, God. Okay,
so now let's return to something I had hinted on the first episode, and let's discuss the children of Synanon. As I had said, the children that were there were almost immediately removed from the parents and put in communal living conditions. Chuck saw that overparenting, or any parenting really, hurt the children's development more than helped it. And he definitely felt that it hindered any progress the adults could make. Or so he would want you to believe. Now, honestly, the kids were pulled away from the parents because I say A and then I put up number one. A, he didn't like kids and he didn't want anything to do with them.
2.
And B, for control. If you control when and how a person can see their children, then you have complete control of their entire life. I mean, that's just, if you're a parent, you understand. If somebody has your kids, then you'll do pretty much anything.
Yeah, make sure they stay with them.
Yeah. So every kid had a buddy to help keep an eye on them, but this rarely worked to keep kids out of trouble. Violence and sexual assault ran, from what I read, rampant through these barracks. Between the kids, I didn't see any sexual violence against children from adults. That's not to say that it didn't happen, but I didn't find it.
Right, okay.
But there was a lot of older kids. And when I say older kids, I'm meaning 12-year-olds taking advantage of 8-year-olds.
That's just fucked up.
Yeah.
Look what they're being raised in. They're a product of their upbringing, effectively, or their
lack of
upbringing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now that's not to say that they were just thrown in a building to fend for themselves, because they did have one or two what they called demonstrators that took care of their daily needs and watched out for them. Now, these demonstrators didn't have any like actual training in taking care of children. They weren't, they weren't all the best suited for the job. They were just the ones that were picked.
Yeah.
They would have some classes, but not the normal school stuff. More arts and crafts, music, survival style classes. But what they spent most of their time doing was working.
Child labor.
Yes, pretty much if a kid was able to walk and talk, a kid was able to work. Whether it be cleaning the buildings, to doing lawn care, or any other various jobs. Many of the children lost significant amounts of weight because of working all day and then rationed food. So they have millions of dollars, and the kids are still pretty much getting gruel to eat every night.
I'm sorry, Catholic Church again, ring any bells? Billions upon billions of dollars. Like Jeff Bezos, step out of the way. Catholic Church, step on in here. Like...
I would like some more, please.
Yeah, and then they still ask you for money on a Sunday. Oh, okay, so we have to support the church. World hunger could be completely eradicated if they wanted to. Let alone just these poor little kids here going hungry, having to lose weight. Do they play the game? Do the kids play the game? Do they sit around and verbally abuse each other? Are they kind of put into that scenario as well, or am I jumping ahead of here?
Everybody played the game from the time you turn 4 all the way. Age 4 is when you start.
Little kids, you're a little poop.
Everybody played the game. No, they were encouraged to. They were encouraged to curse and yell, and 4-year-olds calling people cocksucking motherfuckers. I mean, that's what it was. They were encouraged for that. But this is all another control tactic. Controlling how much someone is allowed to eat is textbook cult method. Textbook.
Yeah.
So when they weren't working or in some kind of class, they were allowed to watch the usually one TV that the dozens of kids had to share, or listen to The Wire. Now, The Wire was a radio station that played pretty much 24 hours a day, and it only played the thoughts and ravings, new rules, or announcements made by Chuck, Betty, or the elders.
So it's not the hit classic TV series starring Idris Elba.
In the 70s, no.
Like, to be fair, I know it wasn't right, but can you imagine if that was the case? It's kind of, hey guys, you have a choice here. You can either kick shit out or you can watch The Wire. Like, oh yeah. The fuck? McNulty all day long, please. Thank you very much. What the fuck did I do?
So the Wire will come into play for the downfall of Synanon later. Here's a little tip for all of you out there that are planning on starting cults. If you don't want to go to prison,
don't do it.
Don't have audio record of all the things you want people to do.
Don't be giving them help.
Listen,
tips and tricks.
It's an educational pod. It's an educational podcast. We're here for everybody.
It's like somebody sticking on how to get away with murder.
In outlawing, we told people that if you're going to kill someone, make sure they're outlawed first.
No. We specifically told somebody to go to the police station if they have killed someone to then double check after. Because you're trying to get people to turn themselves in case we manage to get some idiots.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I think it works.
If you have started a cult, by all means, please start audio recordings of absolutely everything.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a smart choice, people. This is what we're doing right now. We've already got a record and said it.
So, physical torture through beatings, which will come soon, or constant work, wasn't all. Chuck apparently wasn't a fan of cats. Now, a little trigger warning here, because this will be the first, but not the last time we see something horrible happen to animals. Just letting you know. So if you're warned...
Cover your ears, Smudge.
When some of the kids at the Badger compound found some kittens and tried to keep them as pets, the demonstrators took action. They had the kids put their specific kitten in a bucket in a shed or an outhouse. And then they made one of the older kids dump a chemical mixture, some kind of ammonia, in the bucket with the kittens, asphyxiating them with the fumes. Long, painful death that the children had to participate in.
I'm not even going to.
You want to hug one of your cats real quick?
Yeah, where are my cats?
I got 3 inside. I'll give them pets when I go back in there.
It's strange one of them isn't in here, actually. Usually one of them is here.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Usually I see one crawling around you.
It's because we have a visitor. So.
Oh, okay. They're crawling around on them.
We have one of our young dad's friends is here, yeah, and they're all like, "Ooh, hello."
But the children that were there because of their parents weren't the only children there. Because of the status of Synanon and the, up to this point, fairly good light the program had been cast in, juveniles in the 70s were often sent to Synanon by juvenile agencies or by courts on juvenile officers' recommendation, which, even though Chuck couldn't stand kids, Synanon wanted the kids to try to keep their tax-free status and place them in a militaristic punk squad, a forerunner of Scared Straight and other failed camp programs, which we will get to them, not the punk squad, we will get to Scared Straight near the end of the episode. So as these juveniles did not want to be there, Synanon methods like the game or the trip or shutting them off from the outside world.
It sounds like rapper names.
The punk squad?
Do you have the game? You have to no. You have the game. You have the trip.
The game, the trip.
Yeah, spelled with several P's, I imagine. Yeah.
All those methods that had worked so well on people who wanted to be there failed because they didn't. And since screaming at them didn't work, violence was then permitted upon them, breaking, for the first time, Synanon's non-violent rule. Children
I see which way this is going.
Yeah. Children were struck across the face, knocked down, and otherwise punished and then gamed. Soon the okay on violence would spread to splittees, suspected thieves, and perceived spies and enemies. But it would soon be used on the adult members as well.
You kind of see... I'm trying to think of a way to put it. So, it's very obvious why all the methods worked on like the adults, like the people who were previously alcoholics and drug addicts and all that stuff, you know, the people who were very susceptible to things and they were looking for something to, obviously, to cling on to in some ways.
Yeah.
And somewhere to belong as well and all that other stuff. Whereas, like you said, yeah, like the kids were just raised and were brought up into absolute utter hell. And they didn't have any of those issues going in. So how could it work on them? Like, you know, it didn't even think it could possibly work. It's just ridiculous.
Well, the kids who were in the punk squad were pretty much delinquents, kids who just got in trouble, and instead of getting sent to juvie, they would get sent there. Yeah, but they didn't give a fuck about what you had to say about them or what you did, because they've been living the type of life where they're getting pushed around pretty much forever anyway.
Yeah.
I would imagine for most of them. So in the summer of 73, Chuck was taking part in a game, and there was one female member that was showing him absolutely no respect, kept interrupting him. Infuriated Chuck stood up, walked over to the woman, and poured a can of root beer over her head. It seems small and petty, but the effect within Synanon was earth-shattering. No matter other changes that had taken place, the rule of the game had always been no violence at all. Now, Chuck himself had broken that rule. Some wondered whether he had gone crazy.
Had gone?
Had gone.
Yeah. But, a bit late to the party there, pal.
I'm okay with all this other stuff, but root beer on the head, he lost
Yeah,
me.
exactly. This guy must be cray-cray.
Some of his more devoted followers preferred to see it as a sign, as a call to arms. Now, some older members of Synanon balked at this, but they were forced to accept it or be gamed out of the organization altogether. The shift to violence led to a spat of internal purges within the group, or as Betty wrote, quote, "We're beginning to find some creeps among the squares."
Some being the operative word.
Your husband's the fucking creep.
I'm sorry, I think the vast majority of people that were in it were creeps. Like, it's... Especially that Leonard Nimoy guy. But, I think it's crazy, though, the whole thing. Like, I love that it's so typical for people who are in a situation like that, where it's just absolute batshit crazy, everything that's happening. And then they're like, hey, that guy there, what he did there is a bit suspect now, you know. Well, maybe we have a few bad apples amongst all these people who are physically, emotionally abusing each other on a daily basis, and, you know.
Yeah, maybe. But root beer? That's the step too far.
You say, could he not afford it something nicer? Because it like Cristal or something with all the millions he's been getting in? Yes.
Well, remember, they don't drink or do drugs, so no.
Oh, that's true,
Cristal.
actually. Yeah, true. Forgot about that for a second.
I thought the same thing. I was like, man, you'd think it'd be like a Pabst Blue Ribbon or something, but no, root beer actually makes a lot of sense.
What's that really fancy water that they have? The
Perrier?
Yeah, or LaCroix. Everybody's mad about that shit.
LaCroix tastes like if you ran tap water over a lemon.
Yeah. That's like, everybody seems to be mad about that stuff. It's just like, I don't know.
I fucking hate LaCroix. It's disgusting.
Gotta try it sometime.
Beginning in 1974, the authorities began to question Synanon's promises and practices. So it took this long. The concept of lifetime rehabilitation did not agree with the therapeutic norms, and eventually attorney Paul Morantz, one of the heroes of this story, would bring to the health department attention that the group was running an unauthorized medical clinic and taking in people with medical needs Synanon had no license to treat. Tax issues arose in response to these accusations. Chuck declared in 1974 that Synanon was a tax-exempt religious organization, and the Church of Synanon was born. I mean, you saw it coming.
Yeah.
So
didn't see it coming as quickly as I saw the Church of Bacon coming, though. Did you ever see the Church of Bacon?
No.
It's a church I can get behind. Yeah, you go on Google Church of Bacon there, people. It's a real thing.
I'm sure.
Apparently.
I'm sure it is. Now, as a church, you can get away with even more outlandish demands of your followers than you can just as a nonprofit, not a cult, as he called it. So the question of children at Synanon had always been...
Like the Crusades?
Yeah, exactly. So the question of children at Synanon had been troubling Chuck even before the punk squad arrived. It had been usual for children born to families at Synanon to be separated from their parents and raised by the community as a whole, but Chuck now began to wonder whether this was too much effort. In a speech he gave on The Wire, he announced, quote, now remember, the children can hear these speeches. There is no profit to this community in raising our own children. Every baby that we indulge a Synanon female with takes up a bed and somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 worth of energy.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not. And to those who claimed they wanted to have a baby, he explained the experience was greatly overrated. Quote, I understand it's more like crapping a football than anything else.
Him, it was all of his wise years of knowledge of giving birth.
Which might be that might have to be the title of the episode, Crapping a Football.
Yeah.
So it wasn't long before Chuck came up with a practical solution. All male members would receive vasectomies.
No.
And pregnant females were ordered to have abortions.
Like, see you later, Chuck.
Yeah.
Again.
Now,
like, yeah, imagine, I can only imagine sitting there, my shaved head, white robe, like, standing with a pair of scissors. Let's go. No, thank you.
so some agreed immediately, rushing to Synanon's hospital. Others needed to be gamed into it. Now, regarding the baby ban, Chuck said, quote, "Nothing is sacred just because it's been done for 1,000,000 years." Curiously enough, only Chuck himself failed to receive the snip.
Of course.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
okay, so one, he's the leader. He's not going to get his balls worked on. Secondly,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
way
of
too
course
old
so.
to have
Why would
kids.
he?
He's not going to be. Him and his wife aren't going to be having kids anyway. Betty's way too old. So.
That doesn't. Because how old is he here now at this stage?
Well, he was born in
His 50s?
Yeah, he was born in 1913, and it is 1976.
All right, so
And I believe she's about the
late
same
50s,
age.
60s,
He can
there.
still have kids,
Yeah.
but
They're in their 60s. So.
he can still
Math.
have kids, but Betty probably
No,
can't.
of course he can, as long as his junk is
Yeah.
still working. But
Betty probably can't.
yeah, but he has
So.
10 million women sitting there who, if he chose to,
Well, as far as we know, he wasn't philandering around.
he can change the rules for everybody he wants, and he can get.
Well, we're gonna get to that in just a second. It's all coming around. Don't worry. So by the end of 1976, Synanon had assets worth of $22 million, with $8 million in annual revenue. By 77, Chuck was drawing an annual salary of $100,000, roughly $400,000 in today's money, and received a $500,000 pre-retirement bonus. Whatever the fuck that is.
It's like severance pay.
Yeah, before he's done. So he told Time magazine that year, quote, "A lot of guys could do this thing from an old Ford Roadster and sit in an orange crate. They're holy men. I'm not. I need a $17,000 Cadillac. Did you ever play King of the Mountain when you were a kid? I liked King of the Mountain. I won. I was the firstest with
What was
the...
King of the Mountain? We might have had a different name for it.
It's exactly what it sounds like. Whatever.
Might have a different name here.
Whatever you find like a hill of dirt or
Kinda
rock
King of the
or
Hill
whatever,
type thing.
There was one person who was on top, and everybody else had to come try to knock. Yeah, it's King of the Hill, but yeah, he called it King of the Mountain. Yeah,
I'm good at that in Call of Duty, but never. I don't because we didn't really have any hills where you had like King of the. I don't know.
yeah.
Curb.
Oh, we played all. You go to like a construction site and you see a big thing of rock or dirt or something. One person be up there and everybody try to push him off, so you become King of the Hill.
Yeah.
It's just a way for boys to hurt one another for about an hour or so before you all go home. Yeah. Anyway. So did you ever play King of the Mountain when you were a kid? I liked King of the Mountain. I won. I was the firstest with the mostest. I was the smartest. I was older than the rest of the guys. I won. The gang does not expect me to. Well, let me say this terribly unforgivable thing that is true of all people in position. I am not bound by the rules. I make the rules in very peculiar ways, which is about the most honest thing he's ever said.
Well, to be fair, I have to give it to old Chuck now at this stage, right? He has been very straightforward and honest with most things. Like, he already admitted to having a god complex. He's very straightforward. I think he's too dumb to lie, really. And I think he's too smart and too up his own ass to say anything else.
He's too narcissistic
That's the word I was thinking of. Yeah.
And here's a great example. So Synanon was beginning to get to the point where the violence was being less and less concealed. Chuck had always been Sue happy. Now, from the San Francisco Examiner to the ABC to Time Magazine, sued them all when they called Synanon a kooky cult Reporters were threatened, and Times editor-in-chief was stopped outside his apartment by two men with shaved heads who told him, quote, "We are going to ruin your life." Chuck said on national television in an interview with Connie Chung, Maury Povich's wife, "You are not the father," if that makes any...
Oh, right, yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I don't recognize the first name, all right. Yeah.
Quote,
Oh, Maury.
"I do not know what these people might do. I do not know what action they may take against the people responsible, their wives, their children. Bombs could be thrown into odd places, into homes of some of these clowns who occupy high places in Time organization." So he goes on record on TV and says, "Listen,
Threatening people.
I'm not saying I'm telling him to do it, but, you know, some of these people might end up killing a lot of you."
I was going to say, yeah, normally people who commit kind of acts of terrorism or murder tend to admit it after the fact, not beforehand.
After.
Yeah. But here's another thing for you people, a little tip for everybody.
Yeah.
If you're going to do something like that, tell everybody you're going to do it first.
Yeah. On national
Just
TV.
Think to yourself, what would Chuck do? And this is what Chuck would do.
You call
so
up
do that.
You call up ABC, you say, "Is Connie Chung around? Yeah. I know she's in her 70s now, but is she around? I would like to let everybody know what's going to happen."
Yeah. On the 12th of November, I'm planning on doing this. Blah, blah, blah.
So at this time, Chuck was going through a pretty rough patch. In 1977, his right hand, his wife Betty, had died after a long battle with cancer. The entire organization was shook. Chuck found himself alone. So he did what any man does when in mourning over the death of his beloved wife.
Turned to his actual right hand, if you know what I'm saying.
He immediately announced that he would accept applications from any woman who wanted to marry him. Six applied, and he eventually chose a 31-year-old woman that taught at the Badger Complex.
I'm sorry, hold on a minute.
Was that you coughing up?
He has thousands of followers, millions of investors. Yeah. He has all these women, thousands of followers, all this load of shit. And he puts out the grand old thing of, "I'm your great leader. I need a new woman." 6 people.
Six women.
All...
6 women.
Oh, that's when brilliant. I'm looking at a photo right now of at least 50 women. At least 50 women standing in a room. Probably about 100 women if I count all these bald heads. And only 6 people.
Yeah.
And this is just 6. In this one photo.
Out of all of them, at least 6.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And out of these 6, he eventually chose a 31-year-old woman that taught at the Badger Complex. She was said to be sweet to the children and compassionate to their needs, young and beautiful. After marrying Chuck, she quickly became mean, bitter, and fat. So Chuck decides, after he got remarried, that it would be the best process for all the followers to do as he has done. And to keep from pain of love and loss, everyone that was married was to immediately get a divorce and find a new mate and get married. Stay married for no more than 3 years and then get divorced and find a new mate again. Rinse and repeat.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's... Hurrah, say 20% of the males, I'm sure, and there's always going to be the few.
Right. Now, honestly, honestly, this had nothing to do with saving those from the pain of love and loss. Just like making others quit smoking or eating sugar or any of the other things he made them stop doing because he had to stop doing it. He made everyone divorce their loved one and find a new mate because he was hurting from the loss of Betty, and he wanted everyone to feel the same pain he did and then multiply it by having to watch the one you love marry someone else.
Can you imagine being in a male, right, in there?
Yeah.
And you're a married man.
Yep. guess.
Right, so you're going to know what the look is. Right, the look that your wife gives you if you even fucking think about doing that. Look, and imagine them all standing there receiving the news from Chuck saying, everyone here has to divorce their current spouse and remarry. And I can imagine all the wives just turning and looking at all their husbands, giving them the look of, if you even think about doing that shit.
Well, and you may think, oh well, you just get divorced, marry somebody, but you stay with your old spouse, but you're technically married to somebody else. No, they would make you go in a room, a consummation room, and make the marriage a marriage. If you know,
that sounds delightful.
Yeah, That was horrible.
Walk into a room covered in plastic sheeting.
Yeah.
It
was
it's
horrible.
Just the one room. And there's a queue outside for everybody. It's literally just
standing there in line.
Not to be confused with the constipation room. That's next door.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, with the sugar thing, eventually, over the wire, Chuck comes on and says something along the lines of, "I had a Snickers today. It was delicious. Sugar is no longer banned." So they take their money and they go out.
Good old Snickers.
And they start buying. They make lists. Everybody gets to tell them what they want. They go out and they go to the grocery store and they buy all this sugary stuff, and they come back and none of them can eat any of it because it's so much sugar their bodies want to shut down. Their teeth start to hurt and rot. They said that for months the sweetest thing any of them could eat was unflavored, but just plain cake donuts were the sweetest things they could eat. Eventually they worked their way up to eating more sweets and, everything being fine again. But for a long time, they were in pain.
I didn't think about that, to be fair.
Yeah. So even with the sterilization and the decimation of the family unit, Synanon continued to have trouble with its youngest members. Encouraged to play the game at the age of 4, many children, especially those assigned to Synanon, began running away. Helped by an underground railroad led by neighboring rancher Alvin Gamboni. Or is it Gambonini? I saw it spelled 2 different ways, so it's either Gamboni or Gambonini, who was another hero of this story. And he sought to return these kids to their parents. A Synanon mob beat Gamboni in front of his family. I mean, badly.
I googled it. Gambonini.
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 Yeah.
There's 2 N's in there.
Yeah.
Gambonini.
It's a very weird.
The Gambonini.
The Gambonini. So
Alvin.
I don't have the whole
Even weirder Italian name.
List of exactly what happened, how it happened. You can go on Paul Morantz's website if you really want to know. I'll have a link up to it and look at exactly the series of events that happened to him getting beaten in front of his family. It really is terrifying, but there's a lot of stuff that goes through it. All you need to know is that they came to his farm, they tracked him down, they pretty much confronted him and his family while they were in their car, pulled him out, and beat the living shit out of him with shotguns and clubs and an axe handle and all that stuff. It's
They're just jealous because he still had use of his testicles, you see. So.
Maybe, and he had his children. But even though neighbors and locals continued to call in the abuse of the children, Chuck wasn't too worried, largely because the sheriff was firmly in his pocket and both of the deputies were loyal Synanon members. When Gambonini and others called the sheriff, they were told that someone would have to die before they would intervene.
Jesus. All right.
Now, this sense of security notwithstanding, a doomsday philosophy was growing within Synanon. Chuck was increasingly espousing a we versus they philosophy with the outside world, and his paranoia was infusing the group. Brawls over alleged slights were increasingly common between members and locals, leading Chuck to create a specialty training force to protect Synanon's people and property. Now, Dan, last episode, you were trying to guess the name of not so much the police group, but the new style of martial arts they use. Do you have any more guesses before?
Yeah. I was thinking like with the police force, I was thinking it was like Synanon PD or one of those things. Or,
no, actually, the police force has a pretty classy, almost. I hate this. Can't really put a tag on
like
it.
Decent,
it's a decent.
It's
name.
It's not quite like our D&D Magic Police Force.
No.
Name. No. Bunch of dicks. No, I couldn't. I can't remember what I said the previous time.
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and listen, but I know you got. I mean, you were on the right track when it came to the martial arts. You were really going down the right road.
I'm trying to even think of different forms of martial arts now that I can think. Like, it's like you just keep thinking of those short, snappy names like kendo, judo.
So it was a form of karate, but there's nothing about karate in the name. They use it's a form of karate, but they use a different form of martial arts for their name. They're completely fucking idiots. Okay.
All right. Okay. Go on, tell me.
So the police
I'm on the edge of my seat.
The police group he called the Imperial Marines. Not bad.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Anybody?
And actually, I believe for a while they called it was Betty's organization, and they called them Her Majesty's Imperial Marines. So, whatever.
All right. Okay.
And he would sit
that's all right.
Yeah, but he would sit and watch with glee as they practice a special form of karate they named Syno-do.
Why did I not get that?
Syno ''do.
Oh, that's the best name ever.
Or not ''do, whatever. Syno-do. And all I can think of is cinnamon dough. Cinnabon. Syno-do.
Oh, that is an absolutely fantastic name for a martial art. If I make a fighter class in Dungeons and Dragons, he is going to be a Syno-do master. That's what or a monk. If I make a monk, he's going to have to be a Syno-do master.
Syno-do master. He's bald and he wears dungarees under his white robes.
He ain't got no balls.
No balls. Well, snipped.
Yeah, snip. Well,
so
they're still kind of half hanging off.
Yeah.
They didn't do the surgery correctly.
The Imperial Marines were only the tip of the iceberg. When you saw Synanon's residents standing in a line in their uniforms of dungarees and their shaved heads, you saw less a utopian community, more an angry militia. Now, this comparison was made even stronger when it was revealed that Synanon had bought over $300,000 worth of guns and ammunition.
That's nothing.
Well,
could have spent more.
Yeah. Well, in the 70s, that's a lot. So Synanon members ended up buying stock in ABC and attended stockholder meetings and naming their names, the members identifying themselves as former members of Murder Incorporated, asked if the board had protection for their wives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Murder Incorporated was that not a group in America, in New York? Or New Jersey or something?
That's a possibility, but
that was a legit thing. Well, yeah, that was a legit thing. Yeah, I must look it up with that.
But they're all lying. But they're all lying. None of them
they're stating that they're members of Murder Incorporated. Yeah.
Chuck would start comparing Synanon to the mafia. Now, despite Synanon's intimidating stature, a few sought to shed light on its abuses. Paul Morantz, crusading Los Angeles attorney, and again, one of the heroes of this story, had sought to free members whose families believed they had been kept against their will. In 1977, in Santa Monica, Synanon took in a woman in a pre-psychotic break and would not return her to her husband and transferred her to Tamales Bay. The husband hired Morantz.
Just as a quick thing before we continue on.
Yeah.
Snip in here. Murder Incorporated.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
It was an organized crime group. active between 1929 and 1941, according to Wikipedia, and they were an enforcement arm for the Italian-American Mafia, or the Jewish mob, and they were connected to organised crime in New York City and elsewhere, and they are believed to be responsible for between 400 to 1,000 contract killings.
Nice.
So they're known basically then for being dangerous assholes.
Yeah, but none of these motherfuckers in 1977 are former members of Murder Incorporated. If Murder Incorporated
that's just the old dudes. Like, it's a couple of really old fogey guys walking away. I used to be in Murder Incorporated, I tell you.
Okay, so again, the husband of the woman hires Marantz. He had recently just finished a case against persons who had kidnapped Skid Row alcoholics and kept them on Thorazine in nursing homes in order to build a state. In 1977, Marantz won a $300,000 judgment against Synanon for abducting and brainwashing the woman. Now, this news sent Chuck into a rage. Soon afterwards, he spoke on The Wire announcing the organization's new religious posture: don't fuck with Synanon. Again, he's putting this all out.
Did they put that on a t-shirt with all the rest of their stuff that they put out? Like, they have wallets, they have toddies, apparently, all that lot of stuff.
No, but we will.
Fuck with Synanon.
We will.
Yeah, we should put it on the back of one of them. Yeah, don't fuck with Synanon.
Don't fuck with Synanon. Not so much that we're a part of it, but we're telling you as a warning, please don't fuck with Synanon. Yeah. So, quote, "We're not going to mess with the old-time, turn-the-other-cheek religious posture. Our religious posture is, don't mess with us. You can get killed, dead. Literally, dead. I am quite willing to break some lawyer's legs and break his wife's legs and threaten to cut their children's arms off. That is the end of that lawyer. This is a very satisfactory, humane way of transmitting information. I really do want an ear and a glass of alcohol on my desk. Yes, indeed."
What?
Again, all of this is recorded. You fucking idiot.
Actually, look, he thought he was untouchable. He was that narcissistic.
Yeah. Oh, he thought he was because he thought he was going to be running the world within the next few years.
Yeah.
So a grand jury, and you know what? A big thing's going to come that probably...
That's what she said.
If this big thing hadn't happened that has nothing to do with him, it might have kept going, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So a grand jury in Marin County, pushed by Marantz, issued a scathing report in March of '78, attacking Synanon for its child abuse and for the profits that flowed to Chuck. Weapons, threats, and also attacking authorities for their lack of oversight. Remarkably, the authorities refused to intercede. Though local newspapers and broadcast media covered the case, they were largely silenced by lawsuits from Synanon lawyers charging libel. Local authorities refused to investigate after the grand jury report issued, and this caught the attention of Dave Mitchell, who ran a small weekly, The Point Reyes Light, and Mitchell found the report rejection was led by the sheriff, who had turned out to be nominated for sheriff with the help of Synanon. And he had given gun permits to Chuck and his second-in-command, Dan Garrett. Synanon members were instructed in writing. You're giving them evidence. He instructed members in writing to physically harm others, but then take responsibility for it and never reveal Synanon's involvement. Those who went to jail for Synanon were treated as heroes, and Chuck officially declared a holy war. Just what you want to hear.
I think it's holy for a different reason.
Well, he thinks he's a god. So, I mean,
yeah.
But here's the thing: these weren't just idle threats made to rile up his members. They took violence seriously. Locals that got too close to the property were chased down, kidnapped, and beaten. A former member of Synanon, Tom Cardineau, was severely beaten, for being an alleged spy, while he was tied to a post during his honeymoon when he took his bride to show her where he had once lived. He was just driving by the place. Like, oh yeah, I used to live there. I'll show you. And
I was assuming this was like his 7th marriage or so when the
he's he was a splitty.
No, he was gone.
He was a splitty. He got out. He was gone.
Yeah.
He had met somebody who's getting married, and he's like, hey, let me show you where I used to live. And they chased him. This was before the violence started. They chased him down, tied him to a pole, and beat him. A local man named Rod Edson, after a little skirmish on the road, refused to apologize to a Synanon elder and was pistol whipped and hospitalized while shotguns were held on his watching family. He and his family were represented by Paul Morantz in a civil suit. Many young teenagers who got too close to Synanon property were beaten brutally by Synanon mobs. Teeth were knocked out. Believed trespassers were taken into basements of Del Mar building and worked over. Synanon would evict people from, remember that mortgage company, and they got all these apartment complexes. Synanon evicted people by tossing them and their belongings out of the apartment, over balconies, and even off of a roof.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, like, basically, you could be walking down the street to go get yourself some milk and bread from the local store. You happen to go on the wrong side of the sidewalk, because y'all need to be reminded in America that you walk on the side of the road, which I always thought was hilarious. But yeah, like you get the shit kicked out of you.
You could
just for happening to walk.
You could.
Yeah,
if you were in the wrong spot, the wrong time, yes, you could get. I mean, and again,
he has sugar. Get him.
Again, if you want to know more, get more detailed about some of those, link in the show notes, paulmorantz.com. It'll be on there. You can go and you can read. He's got pages and pages of all this shit in detail. So in the summer of 1978, NBC produced a hard-hitting news segment on Synanon. Following its broadcast, executives of the network and its corporate chairman received hundreds of threats from Synanon members and supporters, including letters that said, your actions place you in legal and physical peril, and we're going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. In September 21st, 1978, ex-member Phil Ritter was severely beaten by two members, causing him to fall into a coma.
Did you just say podcast mogul Phil Better?
No, Phil Ritter.
The podcast mogul? Podcast mogul Phil Better?
Not the award-winning podcast mogul Phil Better. Phil Ritter was severely beaten by two members, causing him to fall into a coma for a week. Fluid leaked into his spine, causing a near-fatal case of spinal meningitis. Former Synanon president Jack Hurst spoke out against Synanon, and again a trigger warning for the animal abuse. He came home to find his home door open and his dog hang.
Sick bastards. That's the dog just couldn't.
Yeah, children and dogs. You leave the children in, and you leave the.
I was gonna say that the dog tried its best to defend the home, but it just could not handle the martial arts of Syno-do.
It was all the Syno-do.
That happened, yeah.
So the dog's like, I can handle the Syno-do, and I can handle the baldness, but I can't handle the Syno-do and the baldness all in one. Yeah.
The whole package.
It's too much.
But I can just imagine the guy standing there practicing this martial arts. So I don't want to get hung up, but actually making the noises like they do in the kung fu movies. Like,
all I can think about. Do you watch? Have you ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Of course, I have. Yes, yeah, I have about 2 seasons.
The first couple seasons where Mac is always doing his fucking martial arts. That's all.
That's karate.
That's all I can think about when I think of Syno-do is Mac and his martial arts. Night, man.
Well, that's the pop culture reference taken care of, as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. So, Dan, I told you not to look up anything on this because there was some of it I wanted your actual response to, and this is really the thing that I didn't want you to see. But I knew if you looked up Synanon, this would probably be the first thing that comes up. So probably the most famous or infamous thing that Synanon did in his uptick of violence, and the event that would lead to its eventual downfall of Chuck and Synanon as a whole, was what happened on October 10th, 1978. Paul Morantz was at his home in the Pacific Palisades getting ready to watch the Dodgers and Yankees in Game 1 of the World Series. He had decided, for the first time in a very long time, that he was going to, ironically, take a break from all the Synanon business and just take an evening off. Dan, I don't think there's any way in hell you would ever be able to see this coming. So before the game...
All right, so the guy is chilling out.
Yeah, he's getting ready to watch
sport that
watch game
most
one.
people, just so you know, what you're decided upon, don't really understand.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But you know what baseball
American
is.
cricket, that's what it is. Right? I don't understand cricket.
Neither do I.
Sport. But
he's just
nobody does, not even the cricket players.
For like the first day in God knows how long, he's just going to sit down and enjoy himself. No Synanon business. Again, ironically. So before the game, he decided to check his mail. Inside the mailbox was a strange-shaped package. Maybe a scarf? He reached in to grab whatever it was. Then, with blinding speed, sudden movement from the, quote, package, and a severe pain in his hand. Morantz's address had been announced over the wire at the Badger compound for days before this, Chuck asking his followers who would have the guts to go to L.A. and do something about the lawyer, so two of the Imperial Marines took it upon themselves to place a de-rattled rattlesnake in Morantz's
I was going to say,
mailbox.
it sounded like a snake.
Luckily... But they were smart enough to take the rattle off so he wouldn't be alerted. Luckily, the bite didn't kill him. He did, however, spend 11 days in the hospital. So the majority...
He's very lucky.
He is very lucky.
Yeah, that I've seen a video before of a guy showing what rattlesnake venom does to human blood.
Yep.
And it was...
It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
Like just to give a description, right? So I remember he literally took it, they do through the cotton top of the bottles, whatever, and they basically make the venom go into a jar. And they did that. And then they had a glass, it was like a martini glass that they had with blood in it. And then they poured some of the venom in. They put like 2 drops in or something like that. And the blood basically turned to jelly.
I've seen that video. I know what
it does. It is. It is. Like, it made me just like. Oh, yeah. If I ever saw a rattlesnake, I'd be gone. If you see you later. You know?
So now the vast majority of this violence was overlooked for a long time. That is, until November 17th, 1978. That was the day that 900 plus people, including an American congressman, died in Guyana in South America, in which what would become known as the Jonestown Massacre. So suddenly, the authorities could no longer look the other way in what, in the cold light of day, was undoubtedly a cult. They finally go,
just couldn't keep up with the Syno-do. That's what it was. Again,
it's a cult.
You know, they tried to fight them off as best they could, but they just couldn't deal with the Syno-do. I can just imagine all the Synanon members arriving, looking like the Power Rangers, going around punching people in the face and killing them all. You know, Syno-do.
Within days of the Jonestown Massacre, Synanon was raided by the police. Los Angeles District Attorney's search warrant led to the discovery of an audio tape wherein Chuck bragged of beatings that had occurred, the Imperial Marine training, and said one day the message would be delivered to everyone, quote, "Don't mess with Synanon, you can get killed dead, physically dead." Morantz's name was mentioned in the tape along with the threats to get the wives and children of adverse lawyers. If it isn't for Jonestown, they don't take what's going on at Synanon seriously at all. And this continues. Because of Jonestown, they go...
So Jonestown is a completely isolated event that has nothing actually to do with Synanon.
Jonestown has nothing to do with Synanon at all.
Ah, right, so scrap my comment about Syno-do, because they obviously had no good form of martial arts in which to kick these people's asses. See, that was...
yeah.
Now, if the people of Jonestown were trained in the ways of Syno-do, they would have been able to
They could have fought off the Flavor Aid. And
yeah, that's it, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's the one there, the people... Yeah.
They drink the Kool-Aid, but it was actually Flavor Aid. So the authorities looked at Jonestown. They go, fuck, Jim Jones was just like Chuck. That turned out to be a cult where everybody died. This is a fucking
red
cult
flags
too.
Are finally being waved.
Everybody's going, God damn it. So just before the snake incident, as we'll call it, Chuck fled... Oh, he will. Just wait. Chuck fled to Europe to escape a warrant for his arrest in Washington, D.C. And it was in Europe where he started drinking again. He would soon...
Wonderful drinking culture over the side. Most of Europe.
Yeah. He would soon return to America, heading to their new $1 million compound at Lake Havasu, Arizona, where over 30 law enforcement officials descended to arrest Chuck on the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. They found him, quote, in a stupor, staring straight ahead, an empty bottle of Chivas Regal in front of him.
Nice.
He was so drunk that he had to be carried to jail on a stretcher.
Like, where did he go in Europe?
It didn't say. It's probably out there somewhere. But I didn't see anything of it.
It is going to sound very offensive to the American audience when I say this, but Americans seem to take everywhere in Europe as just straight up just Europe. Like, you ever hear, like, we hear it in movies and TV shows all the time. I went to Europe. Europe's a very big place, people. Just saying. And it's very, very diverse and very, very different. To say you went to Europe is, like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, to go to Germany or France or Denmark. Yeah. Or Poland,
but see, for
Belgium.
Us,
all very different people. Just saying.
We say, oh, he went to Europe, and it could be a bunch of different countries. But over there, you could say, oh, he went to America.
Yeah, but you're one single year country, though. That's the way we'd be looking at it. Like,
we're technically one country, but we're 50 different countries inside one country. Really, when it comes
but that's
down
saying
to
it. Yeah.
Because you could go to New York and you could go to California. There's a big difference.
Actually, it's really funny. If you say to somebody here, "Have you been to America?" They say, "Well, I've been to New York." I say, "Well, that's
the same thing." Yeah, that's.
Or, well, yeah, I've been to San Francisco.
I've been to America in the 1950s. I mean, I went last week, but I went to Alabama, so it's the 1950s there. So.
Yeah. That's how you go traveling through time.
Alabama.
Yeah. Time travel Israel, go to Dublin or come to here. Very different.
So to this day, there is a disagreement over whether Chuck ordered the violence perpetuated by Synanon members or merely stoked their rage. Former Synanon attorney Philip Burdett insists it was the latter, but 3 declarations written in 1983 by 3 Synanon officials in exchange for immunity from prosecution stated that Imperial Marines prepared a hit list of Synanon enemies that was approved by Chuck's assistant, Walter LeBeule. The hit list included former Synanon president Jack Hurst, whose guard dog was found hanged, Phil Ritter, who was beaten within an inch of his life, and Paul Morantz. They alleged that security chief Art Warfield had directed Imperial Marine Joe Musigo, a Vietnam vet, to find a hitman to kill Morantz. Now remember, they have millions upon millions of dollars. But when Musico reported the job would cost $10,000, Synanon executives deemed the price was too high and ordered the Marines to, quote, take care of Morantz themselves. I know we have millions, but you spend the $10,000 to get the job done.
That sounds like what the Irish government would do. Just saying, that sounds exactly like what our government would do. Be like, hey, we have €200 billion in which we can use to invest in this one exact road here. What will we do? Spend €5. That's basically the way it happens here.
Well, it's like Bill Nye. It's like Bill Nye has said. Everything on the NASA space shuttle was put on there and built by the lowest bidder.
Yeah.
So it's not, you don't always get quality. Now, in his subsequent deposition, Chuck claimed to have a, quote, very dim memory of 1977 due to a series of strokes. But this motherfucker is so narcissistic and in such a need to be seen as the guy and seen as all-powerful that even when the question of whether or not he knew exactly what was going on in his organization and having the chance to say that he was ignorant of the violence, he said, quote, most of what Synanon did in 1977, at least what I knew about, I approved of because, as I pointed out before over and over again, I'm one hell of a good executive and not too much ever went on in the organization that I ran that I didn't approve of. I didn't know of everything that went on, of course. You literally they're saying, did you
Yes,
know?
he did.
Did you know about all this violence? And he could have literally said, I had no idea. And tried to at least, he's like, oh yeah. They don't do anything without me telling them
but then there's also tapes of him going.
Yeah, but I
tapes
mean,
of him
still,
saying, "Do this,
you lie,
guys.
lie.
Make sure you
Lie for long.
incite." Yeah, he's.
But he can't.
He's inciting the violence, but he's trying to get them to do it. Like, you know, and it's not as if he can even have plausible deniability or even have coded messages or anything. You know.
So in 1980, Chuck pled no contest to conspiracy to commit murder. He was fined $10,000, which if he would have just spent the $10,000 in the first place, he would have had Marantz killed and he wouldn't have this problem.
It'll all be okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't think. No. If the Jonestown thing is the catalyst, realistically, though, isn't it?
But he got arrested for conspiracy to commit murder on Paul Marantz.
But that's the first thing they got that could stick, surely. Like, surely
they would have kept looking for stuff, but again, he was.
But that was the first thing. I say that's the thing that got the warrant, kind of thing. They kind of like,
he was jetted off to Europe. I think it would have. He probably would have ended up getting caught, but it would have taken a lot longer, and it would have been for something less than committing murder, conspiracy to commit murder, anyway. And on top of that, he was sentenced to 5 years of probation. Marantz agreed to let Chuck avoid prison time.
I don't get that whole thing of probation thing.
Chuck had failing health. He would have never made it in prison. And Marantz was actually the one who said, go ahead, give him probation.
So fucking what? Stick him in.
I agree. And what probably the worst probably the worst punishment he could possibly get aside from giving the money and aside from the probation or any jail time he would have done, the worst thing they did to him was they barred him from having any affiliation with Synanon. They took all that power away.
Oh, poor Chucky.
Now, absent of its charismatic leader, the group floundered. The
IRS see where this is going. Lord of the Flies ensues. It turns into the Running Man.
The IRS revoked its tax.
If you watch, I was going to say, did you ever watch at the start of the Running Man and they first get launched through the tubes and stuff, and they're in like the bit where it's made out to be like it's a proper city just with tons of absolute scumbags in it, even though it's actually like a fairground. But I just imagine that this just turns into basically that. You know, him gone. It's just barrel fires. The amount of barrel fires will just be, and that's when you know
starting
you're
all these fires.
Yeah. It's just loads of barrels everywhere with fires lit in them. You know, and then Mad Max as well mixed in there.
So the IRS revoked its tax-exempt status and ordered Synanon to pay $17 million. In the lengthy court battle that ensued, Marantz provided hundreds of documents he'd unearthed that implicated Chuck and other Synanon officials in crime acts. The court finally ruled against Synanon in 1984, finding that it had a policy of terror and violence and practice of diverting corporate resources for the enrichment of individuals. Synanon declared bankruptcy and in 1991 formally dissolved, though there is a branch that carries on in Germany.
Goddamn Germans.
Now, this isn't to mention the spawn of almost the entirety of the tough love troubled teen industry. Programs like the anti-drug program Daytop, whose founder in 1963 saw possibilities in Synanon, which would lead to the Elan School in 1970 in Maine, which used boxing rings as therapy. The Phoenix House, founded in 1967, which led to The Seed in 1970, where investigators likened it to brainwashing in 1974, led to Straight Inc., which was Nancy Reagan's favorite anti-drug program, which was closed in 93 for abuse lawsuits, but not before leading to Christian programs like New Horizons Youth Ministry and Love in Action, who practiced the straight model to, quote, cure gay teens. Kids Inc., which ended up paying over $10 million in child abuse settlements. Pathway Family Center, founded by former straight staff. Syno-do, which was born directly out of Synanon by former members in 1967, was shut down in 2005 amid, again, allegations of abuse. Various boot camps for young offenders, wilderness programs like Challengers, Summit Quest, and North Star Expedition that have closed in the wake of kids' deaths, and Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, which were shut down due to lawsuits brought on, yet again, by allegations of abuse. All of that came from Synanon. Now, after being convicted, Chuck moved with his wife into a double-wide mobile home, and he died in 1997, a few weeks shy of his 84th birthday. That, my friends, is the story of Chuck Diedrich and the cult of Synanon.
Master of the martial arts of Syno-do.
Master of Syno-do.
Which is
Yoda
what the
of
movie
Syno-do.
One is all about. That's what it is. The movie One is all about the formation of Syno-do.
There you go.
That's what I firmly believe. Yeah, that's all kinds of fucked up. I gotta say, just for a quick thing, one thing I found through scouring through things on Wikipedia and stuff like that was the specific torture method. One of the things to the specific torture method is the therapy thing.
Yeah.
As you were saying, is
The game.
referred to here as attack therapy. If people wanted to look that up, it's loads of other people who I don't know how many of the other groups that we may end up talking about are in it, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's different groups, loads of different groups that seem to use the method, including Synanon.
Yep. Syno-do is the big one that just got shut down.
I sent you a link, right? So if you Google Synanon, right, there's an image that comes up immediately on Google Images. Yeah, so, and you'll see the picture. This whole thing, I didn't read through that because I didn't want to read through it, so I don't know how in detail it gets into the whole story, right? But if you look at that first link, to me, to any Irish people that are listening to this now, it looks like a Sinead O'Connor convention.
Yes.
And I sent him a link also to Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor.
Picture. You should, yeah. Go down to, I don't know what way to describe that woman. But anyway, yeah, so if you Google it, and Google Sinead O'Connor, then basically you will see exactly what sort of followers are like. It's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I was like, that has to be a Sinead O'Connor convention. But no.
No, it's Synanon.
It isn't. The Irish national treasure that is Sinead. But yeah, it's... as we said in the last one, though, there's the movie being made.
There was I don't know if there's
or is it a documentary or something like that being made?
There was a podcast that Robert Downey Jr. and his wife did about Synanon called The Sunshine Place. It's very well done. Listen to that.
Movie made in 1965 as well.
Yeah, Synanon with Eartha Kitt, with the Catwoman herself. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to check that out. The second best Catwoman. After Halle Berry, obviously.
Oh, God, come on.
I know, we all know Eartha was the best. No, not Eartha. What's, oh, God, I'm brutal remembering people's names. I can remember quotes, I can remember stupid scenes and different things, but the names always escape me. Is the classic Batman TV series, Kapow Kapow, one.
Yeah.
Catwoman. in that. I can never remember her name.
Oh, I don't remember who that was. No.
But I'm gonna have. I would say I'd have people screaming at me about it, but nobody ever messages us. So message me, so I don't have to IMDb it, and let us know who is the actor who played Catwoman.
Well, while you're looking that up,
I'm not looking it up. I'm going to make sure people message us.
We're not. Okay, that's fine. You have people tell us. We'd like to thank the Eye for an Eye podcast. Starting off this episode, we'll have a link to their show in our show notes, along with reference material and our intro and outro music. You can follow us Twitter and Instagram at TorturePod. Contact us, email us, or DM us. I don't really give a fuck. Get a hold of us somehow. Let us know who the Adam West Batman Catwoman was, other than Eartha Kitt. At TorturePod. TorturePod at gmail.com.
Sorry, I was going to say, personally, I like the idea of us potentially immortalizing, to a certain extent, the first X amount of listeners in some way, shape, or form, even if it's in the notes, if it's a thing that you're able to copy and paste in so that they're there. So it's like, it's like this whole thing of, like, you see on particular, like, YouTube channels or any of these sort of things. Like, I mean, I have a couple people that I follow on different forms of media and all these different things that I've been there since there was only like 30 people or 40 or 100 people. And it's nice to know that you're one of them. Yeah. And to be immortalized in that manner.
Yeah. So the first 100 that get a hold of us, we will say your name on the show. We will give you thanks. We've already done it for 3. Beth, and then your friends from, where are they? Denmark?
From Holland.
From Holland. Yeah, Holland, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah,
so
from Holland.
No, it's all good. So Andre,
there's 3.
from Holland.
So there's 3. So we got
Sarah,
90. We got 97 to go, people. So let's go.
Yeah, and then somebody else said it to me about listening to it as well. But like,
oh yeah. Well, now you gotta email us, or you gotta leave us a rate and review. It's one or the other. You gotta get a hold of us somehow. You can get this and all of our episodes on YouTube, and if you'd like to help us out, you can go to our Buy Me a Coffee page and make a donation. It's Buy Me a Coffee.
As we now know, Dan needs more coffee.
Or you go to our Linktree link, which is in our Instagram and Twitter accounts, and donate there. Again, please rate, review, subscribe, follow, wherever you listen. Let's get to the hint for our next episode. It's really hard to come up with this hint. It's almost like I have the weight of the world on my chest. That's all you're going to get. But Dan,
the weight of the world on my chest.
The weight of the world. It feels like I got the weight of the world on my chest.
So it's nothing to do with Atlas.
No.
The Greek.
No. We're going to leave it at that. This episode's gone on way too fucking long already, so we're going to leave it at that.
I need to eat and go to the toilet.
In that order?
No, because I've consumed well over 1.5 liters of liquid, and a good chunk of that was alcohol. So,
all right, well, guys, come back next time. We'll talk to you later. See ya.
Goodbye.